Good morning. Today is Thursday, April 18th, 2024. Ha Lachma Anya, di achlu avosana ba'ar de Mitzrayim. This piece of matzah is the bread of poor people, and this is what we ate, our ancestors ate when they were slaves in Egypt. Kol dichvin yeseh v'yechol. Whoever is in need, come and join us and eat. Kol ditrach yeseh v'yifsach. Whoever is hungry, come and share with us. Hashata hacha l'shon haba b'Eretz Yisrael. This year we are here. It looks like we're going to be here in Montreal, but hopefully next year we'll be in Israel. Hashata avdi. Right now, at this moment, we are slaves. L'shon haba b'nei chorin. By next year, we hope to be free men and women. This famous page, this famous paragraph, with which we begin the Magid section of the Seder of telling the story, poses several well-known questions. The first is that what this paragraph says is a contradiction to what the Haggadah says later on. In this paragraph, it says that the matzah that we eat is Lachma Anya, the bread of poor people, and the reason that we eat it is because this is what we ate when we were slaves in Egypt. So the matzah, obviously, is a symbol of slavery. But later in the Haggadah, we read that the matzah is a symbol of freedom, because we were in such a hurry to leave Egypt that we didn't even take time to let the dough rise. So which is it? Is matzah a symbol of slavery, or is it a symbol of freedom? And why are there two different explanations in two different parts of the Haggadah? That's question number one. Question number two. So we're inviting people to join us. Kol ditzrich. If you're hungry, come join us. So it's kind of strange. We hold up a piece of matzah. We say, Ha Lachma Anya. This is the food that poor people eat. And there's only one piece, a little piece. Remember, we already broke it. So there's a little piece, Ha Lachma Anya. And if you're hungry, you want to join us, here, come join us. I mean, if you want to use something to entice guests to join you, why would you offer the matzah a taste of suffering? Why would you say, this is the bread of poor people, come, enjoy, we'll have it together? I mean, if you want to welcome guests, if you want to entice guests to come, why don't you mention the soup, the chicken, the kugel, the dessert? Why offer the matzah? So I have asked and answered these questions several times, and today I'd like to share a new answer that's partially based on the writing of the Rav, Rabbi Yosef Soloveitchik. Primo Levi famously suffered through and survived Auschwitz, and prodigiously wrote about it. He wrote a book, If This Is Man, and he describes his experiences in Auschwitz. And according to Levi, the worst time of all was when the Nazis left in January 1945, fearing the Russian advance, and all prisoners who could walk were taken on a brutal death march. The only people that were left in the camp in Auschwitz were the people who were too sick to move. For 10 days, these sick people were left alone with only scraps of food and fuel. And Levi describes how he and two other people managed to work to light a fire and to bring some warmth to the fellow prisoners. Many of them were, by this point, dying. And then he writes something amazing. When the broken window was repaired, that he and two other fellows managed to repair, and the stove began to spread its heat, something seemed to relax in everyone. And at that moment, Tororowski, that was a Franco-Pole, 23 years old, he had typhus, proposed to the others that each of them offer a slice of bread to us three who had been working. He and the other two had worked to make the bunker, the room a little warmer. So they suggested that each person would give a slice of bread to the three workers, and so it happened. Now listen carefully. Only a day before, a similar event would have been inconceivable. The law of the lager, the law of the concentration camp among the prisoners there was eat your own bread, and if you can, that of your neighbor, and left no room for gratitude. It really meant by individuals offering their bread to someone else, it really meant that the law of the lager was dead. It was the first human gesture that occurred among us. I believe that that moment can be dated as the beginning of the change by which we who had not died slowly changed from prisoners back to human beings. The Rav writes that sharing food is the first act through which slaves become free human beings. Because one who is a slave, one who is a prisoner, one who fears tomorrow does not offer their bread to others. But one who is willing to divide their food with a stranger has already shown themselves capable of fellowship and faith, the two things from which hope is born. That is why we begin the Seder by inviting others to join us. Bread shared is no longer the bread of oppression. Reaching out to others, giving help to the needy and companionship to those who are alone, we bring freedom into the world. And with freedom, God. Now, similarly, I would add to this the difference between the two phrases called dichvin and called ditztrich. They mean kind of the same thing, but there's a difference in the implication. Because called dichvin means all those who are, it means much more than just hungry. It means those who are pushed away, those who are ignored, those who are despised. And kol dichvin yesev yechol is a commitment not just tonight, but to make the effort and bring them in and to end their slavery wherever we encounter them. Kol ditztrich, whoever is hungry, come and join the meal. So what we are really saying is a little bit wider, or I'm really just explaining more carefully the words of the Rav, that when we can show our compassion for another, and when we can share whatever little it has with another, that is the beginning of freedom. Because a slave can do neither of those. Let me share with you just one aspect of this idea of welcoming and what it can do to someone. Now, this is from a very different context. It also is about going to church. So please, if you'll just translate where it says going to church to going to shul. I could just say going to shul, but I want to give you the original source. I read this recently. There was a man who was an alcoholic. Who is an alcoholic? So you know, a person who, God forbid, Nebuch, suffers from alcoholism, often goes to meetings of AA, Alcoholics Anonymous. And those meetings are very helpful. And it's a support group. And each person provides support to each other in their road to sobriety and to try to keep it up. And it's very, very difficult. If you or I have not personally experienced it, I don't think any of us can understand how difficult it is to achieve and then to maintain sobriety. So here's what this man said. He's an alcoholic. He regularly goes to AA meetings. He said, "When I'm late to church, or when I'm late to shul, people turn around and stare at me with frowns of disapproval. I get the clear message that I'm not as responsible as they are. Why is he coming so late? But when I'm late to AA, the meeting comes to a halt, and everyone jumps up to hug and welcome me. They realize that my lateness may be a sign that I almost didn't make it. And when I show up, it proves that my desperate need for them won out over my desperate need for alcohol. Now that applies in a very specific context, but that should be an attitude that we have in general. Let's make sure that people know how welcome they always are, that our table is really big, and that there is always a place with their name on our table. That's just one idea of what it means to make someone feel welcome. And when we can welcome another and make them feel at home and share what we have with them, that is the sign that we are no longer slaves. I shared before the line later in the Haggadah, Chayev Adam liros es atzmo ki'ilu hu yatsa mimitzrayim. A person is obligated to see themselves as if I myself am going through the process of leaving Egypt tonight at the Seder. At the Seder, I have to go through, you have to go through a transformation. I have to start the evening feeling I am a slave. One of the ways I do that is by holding up this piece of matzah and saying, Ha Lachma Anya. This is the bread of poor people that we ate as slaves. I have to start the evening like that, and I have to end the evening feeling that I am free to serve God. Ha Lachma Anya. This is the bread of poor people, and this is what I have. I am a poor person at the beginning of the Seder. I am an Eved. I'm a slave. But that begins to change with the next line. Because the next line doesn't appear logically to follow from the line before. Kol dichven yesev yifsach. Kol ditzrach yesev yifta. Whoever is hungry, come join us. Whoever is alone, come be with us. With these words, I start my transformation from slave, one who can only think about my own pressing, immediate needs. I begin with those words. By saying that I will share, by saying that I will welcome, I begin the transformation to a ben chorin, to a free person who can be concerned with the well-being of others, who can share whatever I have, much or little, with others. It is not the case that there is a contradiction between the two paragraphs of the Haggadah on the meaning of matzah. The Seder should be the unfolding process of transformation from matzah signifying slavery at the beginning to matzah, the same matzah, signifying freedom by the time we get to the end of the story. And the transformation begins when we start to share with and welcome others. My friends, I wish you a great day, and I look forward to seeing you soon in person.